We should be on.
It's always such a surprise.
It is.
And we do have a special guest to show you tonight, center stage.
Oh, you're not on.
Except not me.
All right, let me.
Paul has replaced me with Chief Kuss.
Yes. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Thank you for inviting me to join your show.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. And I'm going to try to go to the other one. Yeah, I don't like that view, so we're going to go to this view. All right, that's much better.
Okay.
All right, yeah, that's a better view.
There we
All
go.
right, it's been kind of a busy. I'm going to take these out right now because I don't need them for a little bit. But it's been an interesting week. Actually, even a day.
It's been an interesting week. Yeah.
So a lot's been going on. You want to start, or do you want to? Should we start with the agenda that they posted, or do you want to start with something else?
I think what I'm going to do. I thought about it on the way over.
All right, a lot of forethought into the
That's right.
into the programming.
Yeah, I think what I would like to do is start off with the usual after snowstorm event of thanking Zach and the highway crew for an awesome job.
Yep, as always. Yeah, as always. Yep, here.
And that would extend, especially since the chief is here, to all public safety.
Right.
And their willingness to be out in the storm when none of us want to be.
Absolutely.
Well, I hope your guests at home understand that I am the retired chief. So let's be clear about that.
You still keep the moniker, though. I mean, right?
You do get to keep it. But,
all right.
It's respect only. It's
Okay.
It has no actual municipal authority.
So it comes with respect?
Sometimes it just comes with a.
Because that's a novel approach.
start now?
Why start now?
It comes with
You have to earn it. You have to earn it. But all right, well, go ahead then if you wanted to go a little bit more.
Okay, so now here's the hook. We got
right.
thanking Zach for all his time and public safety, and
Yep.
what people also have to know is that Zach does this without getting paid. He gets all the work that he does when he's out snow plowing. He does, as part of his 35-hour week, although he doesn't take any other time.
Wow.
Actually, he's 40 hours.
Right.
So, it's something that we really owe him a pat on the back every time we see him.
Yeah, that is impressive.
And he can take comp time, and he does sometimes, but certainly not enough.
Yeah. No, I don't think people are aware of the time that gets put in by,
Right.
especially those guys. I mean, we've had a very relatively mild winter.
Right.
But this kind of ice, you got to stay on top of it. They were going up and down the road. I mean, I heard them all day long today. So
Yep.
it was very safe.
You don't get to pick when the snowstorm comes.
Right.
Right.
100%.
So, and then we'll take that now, saying Zach, did a great job too. We'll extend it to, the senior center, the fire department, every police chief, all of our
Emergency management
employees.
group. Well, they don't. Yeah. Even the volunteers, right? 100%.
Always go above and beyond for the town of Brimfield.
They do. Nope, we've been happy.
They do.
There's no doubt.
So, and they get their salary, and that's the light just went on, didn't it?
No,
Paul?
it did. Nope. I felt this coming. I felt the surge. I felt it coming. Yes, go ahead. Please go on.
So, the town has been very, very lucky to have the employees that it's had, where, they don't mind, calling up the former chief at 10 o'clock at night saying the town hall is out of oil.
Right.
He was there to fill it up.
Right. Even prime it and start it.
Yep.
Does it all.
Took us a few attempts. But we got it.
More than once.
It's an old machine. It happens.
It's about the only thing he couldn't do was the propane heater in his own office.
Yeah, that thing was.
What was that issue?
Well, it's really old, and
It's the only heat.
one of them had been disconnected, and the other had been allowed to run out, and so it was cumbersome to get it back fired up.
Gotcha.
The
pile
one
was out
that
and everything.
I had to come out and help you with?
Oh gosh.
What was that problem?
I'm not recollecting.
Was it the yawn?
Oh, he was. I believe there was some technical errors on the previous operator.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. Let's go with that.
Plugs are
Oh,
difficult.
plugs are difficult.
Somebody unplugged it. But thank God Mike was there to help.
Yep, that's right. Well, at least he didn't just say, turn it off, turn it back on. It should go right on, just like a computer thing.
Right.
So already we've got a couple of comments. We've got one from the Harry saying, Chief Kuss, thank you so much for all of your dedicated years of service to our town.
Very nice.
You'll be sorely missed.
Well, it's very kind of you to say that. I mean, very kind.
Absolutely.
Of course, even though I've only been gone a couple of months, I miss Brimfield already. So
Yeah.
can't say I don't.
Yeah, and Mr. Miller says that to think that Zach does it all with his snowblower too. Zach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
So now getting back on subject.
Okay.
So we have all this, but just recently and last week we talked about it a little bit, where our treasurer collector was looking for more money because there was some arrangements made where he was supposed to get less hours but more pay. And then
they're going to divvy up the hours a little bit more evenly between the two.
Right, the assistant and
Right.
and the head. So, and he went to FinCom, and that didn't go well. And then there was an executive session. I'm not sure exactly what happened in executive session, but somehow there was. I guess the end result is that on this new meeting, coming up this Monday, we're going to see his resignation.
Right.
So, one of their people, once again, is resigning, and that I guess will go to the two others.
Yeah.
Their building committee,
Yeah.
which has 6 people in it, is now down to 4.
Yeah, they lost a third of the standing building committee 2.0, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
I'm not sure what else. Well, I guess we know kind of why. I mean, I suppose we can say we don't know why, but I think we do.
so for Chief, who's trying to see,
Right.
the 2 resignations were Mr. Pfeiffer, who was the only true general contractor who understands every part of building.
Yeah, that's a big loss. I mean, Mr. Pfeiffer obviously knows a great deal about the building industry and construction in general.
And the history of Brimfield and
Right,
our
and because
town
of his
buildings.
resident, right, and so he's a big loss. There's an awful lot of knowledge lost there, history lost there, and he's a guy that loves Brimfield, and so his effort on the board would have been, very much needed, and to lose him is a shame.
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, he was really the only one that offered the continuity, right? Was he? He was on the.
No, it wasn't.
He wasn't on it.
No, he wasn't on the previous
thought he was.
version of the building committee, but he had obviously been around forever and had a history with all of the
Gotcha.
buildings in town. Had done work on some. He hung the back door in the police station,
Right.
the old station. He had hung the back
Right.
door for me a couple of years ago, helped me with that. So
Right.
the guy's just been around obviously forever, and he
Right.
knew an awful lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
He
shame.
he was going to put the new railings on the front of the town hall. He did the real quick. I think he did that, but then this new board came on and stopped that, and
Yeah.
we still got the 2x4s that
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, not quite error, not quite for the time of the
Period correct.
period
Yes.
correct, I guess.
yeah,
But I guess it functioned to get
And-
to get the doors opened. So
right. Yep. And the other loss to the building committee is Ms. Kofsky,
Yeah. Right.
Teresa, which is very unfortunate as well. She was involved in some pretty major construction projects at her previous position,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, she's been an integral person in the select office
Yeah.
to kind of process the paperwork, make sure things get done. She kind of was point on a lot of what was going on with the common. Quite honestly, she became default by default, like the paper passer, and make sure everything was kind of going in the right direction with that, in the direction it went with that. So I think she knows. She's the procurement officer,
Right.
in town, so she's got a lot of knowledge base that, again, the committee can only lose by having her resign.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Since so many things flow through the selectman's office, and obviously the administrative assistant being the conduit by which it flows, everything to do that the building committee may have tried to do or done, or especially any time money was to be spent, it would have gone through Teresa.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's a shame.
She's a necessary element to the smooth running of that.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see what the next meeting will be, and see if they can get some more people on it.
yeah.
I'm sure. I don't know if they will or not. I'm hoping they do. I mean, they got to get going. They got to get rolling.
Yeah.
Do you want to start talking about
So yeah,
something on there? Maybe that should have been on their agenda. Whatnot?
yeah, I would say the big nut that dropped this week. Not that these are small by any stretch. This should be enough for anybody.
Right.
But last week a couple weeks ago, we saw on the agenda and at the select board meeting that they had approved actually $650,000 for a grant for engineering and architectural services for the new senior center,
Right.
and that was good. I was concerned. I was personally concerned about it because of giving that much money to this new building committee, and now with those two gone, I would be very concerned about it.
Yeah.
That it would be used properly and in a good fashion, but instead it got taken off by the Wednesday meeting,
Right.
and doing some according to the board at that night. It was pretty much because they wanted, the other towns didn't want it included, and what was the other reason they gave? There's,
I think that.
Can't imagine there were any good
Yeah.
ones.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was the one that stands out when you mentioned it to me after the meeting.
yeah, okay. So, I one of the things that is another thing that people have to understand is back when we were on the board, and Paul, you much more so than I, these CDBG grants
Right.
came through, and we had people that really worked on that, and there were meetings between the towns,
Right.
and that was it. The comment was made that the other towns didn't even want to come to the table if we were going to be getting $650,000 for the senior center.
That seems a little bit contrary to what's happened in the past. I mean, I think that's exactly how Wales got their senior center.
Right, and Holland.
Right. And
Well,
so,
it's our turn now.
And so that
Right.
seems a little bit disingenuous, for that to be an argument, to be quite honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, from my time on the board, similar to you, I reached out to someone who's become a friend from the select board in Wales, and just asked him point blank if that was the case. And the comment that I got was that it wasn't so much that they were not willing to come to the table, but they were upset that they were never invited to the table. So,
For a meeting?
yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Really?
So whether that's Pioneer Valley that dropped the ball, there's a new guy doing the CDBG grant.
Yeah, but they know that we're a tri-community.
The tri-town, right?
I mean, they know that that's the
Right.
the hierarchy, the way it was built. I mean, the architectural design of that group. That even if it's a new person, they must have been told you've got this, and it entails this entity, which is made up by 3 towns.
Right.
I mean, you had to.
Right.
So, yeah,
So-
it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, it would be interesting to see if others say the same thing. But regardless, I mean, these grants are out there to help, and we didn't even get the chance to
No.
use it.
And a $650,000 grant would have gotten us shovel ready.
Pretty close. It would
Yeah.
pay for an
Yeah.
awful lot of architectural plans and engineering studies.
Right.
All of the things you have to do, site work, you have to do environmental impact site work, you have to do all of those things in advance before a project can be approved. And $650,000 obviously goes a great way towards those, getting all of that paperwork and all of those items that have to be done ahead of time ready to go. But I think more importantly, and what the people should understand too, is that the Pioneer Valley grants and getting shovel ready for these projects ahead, there was other grant money for the building itself down the road. Is that correct? Is there,
Right. Well,
well,
yeah.
that segues into the next issue.
It does kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to be ready for phase 2,
Right.
which means you got to take advantage of phase 1.
Right.
And if you drag your feet on phase 1, or if you get left behind, then you're certainly not ready for phase 2. And
Right.
you're
Right.
forced to wait till the next go round sometimes in order to get your phase 1 ready. Or the town itself has to pay that bill,
Right.
the taxpayer.
Yeah, I think people need to be aware that when the state and these subsets of monies come to the table, that if there is a tendency to not take advantage of them, then they don't come looking for you for the next round. And so, what they do want to see skin in the game. They do want to see something where there's an effort made. And if the effort is merely asking for the grant and starting that ball rolling, that's all they want to see.
Right.
When they see people kind of sit back and they don't want it, then the next time they ask for money, it may not be so easy.
Right. And so the other part is, whether if this had gotten done earlier, they needed to submit this. When you submit a CDBG grant, you need to have a public hearing at least 2 weeks in advance about that grant.
Right.
So this was about, I don't think it was even 3 weeks.
Right.
So, and that was the first I had really heard of it before the selectmen voted on it, back in January.
Right.
But had this gotten, going sooner, and by no means am I saying that, this has anything to do with Teresa or the administrative assistant.
Right.
Back when we were on the board,
Right.
you got the grant going.
Right.
Made sure when you were the liaison
Right.
for Pioneer Valley.
Right. Yeah, we traded who was that person, that liaison, whatever you want to call it, that went to the meetings and discussed things where they were going to send certain amounts of money. And every once in a while, a larger sum became available. More often it was these helpful loans that would help people's houses and whatnot, and we just
Right.
would have a discussion with the other towns and figure out, who needs the money the most. And that was a tough. Those are tough discussions, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
To know from what town, what community the person needed to fix up their hole, to get their water or get their roof fixed or whatever. And the money's, generally speaking, when I was there wasn't an opportunity for this much, I have to admit. This is a good amount of money that would have really kind of kicked a lot of things down the road. I mean, would have kicked things up a little bit as far as getting attention and getting things done.
Right. And it's a lot of money, but I think we had a decent chance at it because it's a follow-on, going on kind of what you were saying before with if you go out and ask for it, we had done a senior center study for $50,000 using CDBG funds, 3 years ago. That was now completed. It was shown to the building committee.
Right.
And, and building committee 1.0.
Right.
The classic.
The OG.
Maybe that's
the OG.
classic building committee. What's that?
The old committee. But you're absolutely right. The state likes to see a continued effort. Obviously, like to see towns participating in these grants year after year. There's always been an element of money available for towns for the new septic systems for the elderly. A new roof for persons who are needy. We've dug wells in the past. We've had, you recollect, some years back, we put in wells for people. And so that element of the grant repeats itself year after year. And some of these other opportunities come along less frequently. But the state likes to see that communities are participating in these grants, and that at least they're making application, they're making inquiry, they're receiving the packets. You're not going to win every grant you apply for.
Right.
But obviously somewhere there's that middle ground where you're participating enough to get recognized, and you're not getting too many grants where they would hold off and not give you something because you've been a recipient so frequently. So there's that middle territory you want to try to stay in, where you're pretty much eligible for anything that comes down the road, and you're showing a history of participation and successful completion of these grants. And so the senior center, having had grant money help propel its design and planning previously, seemed like a perfect segue to get this thing going on a next phase, a level 2. And even though Wales and Holland didn't want to see Brimfield take all the thunder, and steal the show, we had allowed them to steal the show years ago when they built their senior centers, both of which were built under grant money and proposals that they provided. So,
Right, that's 100% true. I mean, that turnaround for sure.
Right, and I think that's a really important piece where, even if they were not happy that we were getting this much money this year, it doesn't sound like there was a lot of communication, a lot of pushback.
Right.
And I think it could have been explained by, both of, we signed off on, Wales and Holland in the past, and we're just asking the same thing.
Right.
Because we all need all sorts of stuff.
Right.
And so now we're going to go to the next phase, which you've alluded to, is if we could get this to shovel ready or close to shovel ready, the next phase of the ARPA funds. So the federal government created this ARPA, the American
Relief
PA.
Recovery Act or something.
Yeah,
Relief
recovery.
Act.
American
program.
Yeah, sure.
You should look it up.
Yeah, ARPA. So, and they gave a bunch of money to all the states, and then the states handed stuff out to every municipality. The state still has, I believe it's billions of dollars.
Yes, I think that's true.
And they want to kind of dole it out in small chunks. I was talking to the state senator, Senator Fatman, a week or two ago, and he let me know that the next round is going to be for facilities. So, and all of the ARPA funds have to be earmarked by 2024. And I forget if it's July 1 or December 31 or June 30th or and then it has to be used by 2026. Same thing, not sure June or January.
Yeah, which one? Yeah.
But so when you've got that much money that has to be spent so quickly on facilities, they're going to be looking for these shovel-ready projects.
Right.
And Brimfield had a building committee that had gone, I believe one of the last things that you discussed.
Yeah, you have to appreciate from a building committee standpoint, and for any of these projects, how long a project takes from its discussion and the early stages of conversation about what and where and why, all the way through design and preliminary studies, etc., and all the way to having, as you call it, a shovel-ready project, where they're just looking for funding to put the first, dozer in the ground. Towns have to initiate these efforts years in advance sometimes. And the continuity provided by a long-standing building committee provides you with some of that ability. This project was on the books, it was in discussion, there had been multiple attempts at studies and etc. And so a lot of data and a lot of things were getting done that were a necessity in order to move forward.
Right.
And some of that, of course, isn't lost. I mean, the work was done, the project, those pieces of paper were written. It would have been nice for the previous building committee to stay in place and carry these projects through. But, it's a hope, obviously, now that the current building committee can make something of what's already been done and catch up with the opportunities that the state's providing on their timeline, by the way.
Right.
The town doesn't get to pick and choose when they want to apply for grants. These grants all come with caveats, they all come with attachments, they all come with conditions that have to be met. And if you're not in a position to meet those conditions quickly, then you're not going to be awarded that grant. Your application is a waste. And so this sequence is going to happen whether the town of Brimfield is involved or not, and it seems unfortunate, very unfortunate, if the town can't get caught up and can't get back in the mix.
Yeah, if we can't catch that bus of money that
Right.
drives out of town,
To think that you'd miss out on the ARPA money because you failed to get your
Right.
project rolling, locally sufficiently,
right,
is really unfortunate. And you would hope that the town can catch up and make sure that they got stuff shovel ready and these plans rolling forward. So when the ARPA money comes out, you have something to apply with. You have
Right.
a package that's created and shows that you've been putting effort in.
and the reality is you've also got to have a project that goes through due diligence of the committee and then gets presented to the town.
Yep.
Right.
You know? And if the town can't be sold on it, then there it is again. There's another pothole that's going to slow things down a bit. But you've got to have something to present.
Right.
And if you don't start that process, you can't just make it up and draw it on a napkin and bring that to town meeting.
Right.
And since the number one sort of deterrent to any building project is the cost of that project.
Right.
That's the number one thing that slows these projects down. I don't think you're going to find a citizen anywhere that's going to tell you they shouldn't have a decent senior center. And that a long-term, senior center, long-term senior center solution is not a good idea. Nobody thinks that. And so the question becomes, when does the town take advantage of the opportunities that are out there?
Right.
Or if the town considers themselves terribly wealthy, they can foot the whole bill themselves.
Right.
But the reality is due diligence by people involved, by committees, by select boards, by department heads, is to see how much grant money you can get when it's available and under what circumstances.
Exactly.
Right.
And so this opportunity is here now. It's knocking at your door. And it's my hope, of course, that Brimfield can catch up and get in on what's going to be a little bit of cash flow.
Right.
And save the taxpayer the money. And then the ultimate is you have a new long-term solution to your senior center needs.
And I'm gonna stop you there.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, time to put you to task. So, I was talking senior center, and the original approved motion by select board was $650 for a senior center, but afterwards, and so that's what it primarily was.
Mm-hmm.
But the building committee, OG, had discussed with the architect that did the senior center study the possibility of moving to doing the addition as well. And that's what,
At the town hall.
yes,
Yes.
the building committee wanted to do was, now combine the annex project addition and the senior center.
Right.
And I had asked, I called, I was actually calling to see if there was any way that we could, without the select board present, go after this grant.
Right.
But the one change would have been to not call it a senior center project, but the town hall renovation.
Right.
And annex. So it was all wrapped up and we could get all the funds that we needed. So, and they said that would be possible, but it wasn't possible because one, the select board would have to sign off on it.
Right.
And two, there wasn't enough time to have the public hearings and all that.
Timelines, yeah.
So that's how it died on the vine.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. But it, with just a little bit of conversation, communication,
Right.
this could have been, we could have gotten the funding for all of the projects.
And they just needed to talk to the other towns, meet with them, talk to Pioneer Valley, and it just, even if they say, listen, we can only do this if it's predicated on that, we can do as much as we can, and show that you had some skin in the game, some desire to do that. I mean,
Right.
to not take that, I don't get it. I, even just to talk about it doesn't make sense to me.
No,
It doesn't make
No.
sense to me.
it seemed like very little communication, conversation,
Yeah.
for what could have been a substantial amount of money, and
Yeah. A jump start.
Yeah. So I also want to just pause, and I guess I'll inflate your head a little bit with some of these comments.
You're going out of the picture, so you have to slide in a little bit.
Well,
You.
once I read some of these, we're both going to have to go out.
Oh no, there won't be
Sheep's
any
head is
room.
gonna be-
There won't be
yeah.
any room.
Well, it depends. Is it my wife typing?
No, it is not.
No, those are the ones that are getting screened out.
That's right.
We don't take expletives.
And yes, honey, I walked the dog before I left.
Yes, exactly.
Don't slouch.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, sit up straight.
Yeah. one is, wow, Chief, your knowledge has no boundaries.
Oh,
Well, that's not true.
That's not true. That's not true.
Proof you were so very invested in our town.
Oh, that is true.
Well,
Yes.
it is. It
But-
is.
It's true.
But
That
you're
is
not
true.
even a resident.
No, I'm
Wait,
not.
what?
I'm not a resident. But so the people out in TV land understand. Aside from the 19 years and 4 months that I was employed by the town of Brimfield, which I had dedicated my professional career to the town, obviously I spent part of every single day in the town of Brimfield, much like a resident would do. Obviously, I was invested a great deal in the government and the process of running the town and how things worked, either through my position as police chief or, of course, just as my, I don't want to call it volunteerism, but I did volunteer as much as I could to be helpful whenever somebody needed something. And
Yes,
whether it was
you
putting
certainly
oil
did.
in a dried up oil tank or, trying to find something for somebody or calling somebody to see if they would get something done for the town or something we didn't know about or,
Right.
going to meetings just to have a presence in the meeting and to learn about what was going on. I have obviously my heart and a lot of professional effort went into the town. And I also, my wife and I own property in town. So we do pay a
taxes.
small amount of property taxes into the town. And as such, I claim, part citizenship, I suppose.
There you go. There you go.
Between my
Dual
employment
citizenship?
and my tax dollar.
That's right.
I
That's
feel
right.
like maybe just like a stepson, maybe, or
Right.
at least a rental. So
And I don't think we've ever had the opportunity to say it as we say it in person, but to make it just visible to everybody else. The thanks for that, because I would bet that if you calculated those hourly volunteerism, it would be. It would be unbelievable. And just being at all the meetings. What we saw, every time you turn around, you were at a meeting or you were in town.
Yeah.
So I have to extend that. Like, I just assumed that you worked 500 hours a week or whatever. You know what I mean? I just assumed that was what you did because
Yeah,
I saw you all the time. And,
right, and in fairness to overinflating my ego, I knew what I was getting into when I took the job. I wasn't completely blindsided by the realities of Brimfield. It wasn't a total surprise. And even though when I started many years ago, I started at $121 a week was the chief's salary, which, you get what you pay for. A lot of people would have argued you get what you pay for. But so it wasn't the salary, and it was just, and I stayed all these years because I really liked it.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to like Brimfield. It's hard not to really, get a warm and fuzzy feeling about the town. The people have always been extremely kind to me. They've always been good to the police department.
Yeah.
The select boards and I have gotten along all of these 2 decades. It was really, I couldn't have scripted a better career, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And would I change a few things? Yeah, maybe a few minor, but I still would have mailed in my application to be the chief of police
There you
back
go.
in 2003.
Yep.
So I have to say it's nothing but fond memories, because the bad ones always fade, but the good ones will stay. So
Good.
And so, can I bring up the proclamation that
if you have to.
it's worth mentioning.
It is.
After what happened with this current board,
I'm sure you don't remember because it faded. That's the part that fades.
Those memories fade.
There you go.
it just seemed wrong the way that it was going out. So we got together and we got a proclamation together and we got every former selectman for the 19 years and 4 months that's still alive. And every single one of them was so pleased to sign something to say that Chief Kuss did an unbelievable job.
Yeah.
Now you're making me blush.
There you go. It was a good thing. It was a nice thing for you to do too. To be honest,
It was
really
very,
nice.
it was very nice,
very
to think that you would reach out to all the old selectmen that I've worked for. And obviously I've worked for, in those 19 years, we worked for, could have been 8, 9, 10, I don't know how many actual configurations of select board over those years.
Right.
But it was quite a few, because every year sometimes we'd have a new selectman, sometimes they would get reelected. So the complexion of the board changed all those years, and I had an excellent, the department itself and myself personally we had an excellent relationship with the boards.
Yeah.
And that's why things worked in Brimfield.
Right.
Yeah.
Agree.
The sweet thing about Brimfield, and really one of the things that the average person at home doesn't realize, is how much the personalities of all the players, and I don't want to overemphasize, but the reality is there's hardly more than a dozen or 15 people that are very integral in the function of the town from day to day and week to week and month to month.
Right.
You have a few department heads, you have a principal at the school, you have select board members, you have individuals who might rise to the surface because of their position in the fire department, or a code enforcement officer, or those kinds of things. But when you really think about it, how many people have a daily effect on the outcome of Brimfield, it's not that big a circle. And when that circle gets along really, really well, and all those people like each other, and that there's a spirit of helping, and a spirit of understanding, and a spirit of patience and kindness,
Right.
lots gets done. And it gets done quietly, and it gets done happily, and it gets done, things move forward,
Right.
and problems get solved, and crises arise, and they never make it to the surface that the average citizen sees, because
I agree.
a quick phone call to the highway boss, a quick phone call to the fire chief, these things get solved, and
Right.
we all keep marching along.
Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, I had, whether you want to call it the fortune to be on the board as chair during the Triple E and during the start of COVID, and most of the people don't know all the conversations that were had
Right.
every day. I mean, every day we talked with the health agent and the fire department and paramedics and Eva, obviously, because just to make sure people got their prescriptions, people got their food, people, everybody was scared. There was a lot going on, and the average person has no idea how many man hours, or woman hours, or person hours went into all that to keep it so that the average person didn't have to worry, or worry less, at least as much as they could.
At least the system functioned, and stuff got done, and kits were available, and information was spread, and Jamie Terry deserves, obviously for the pandemic, she deserves a lot of credit, and the Board of Health obviously that supports her, because of the countless things that she did that nobody even knew she did. The countless times she was on the phone, or left you a message, or sent you a text, and just to keep the information flowing, and so that individual department heads, whether it's police or fire, highway, all these different people, the senior center, the library, they had answers to questions because somebody was getting them that information.
Right.
It took a lot of people. It took a village. It literally took a village to make that all happen.
And it worked.
Couldn't
really
be more proud for that group. I mean, that group was outstanding.
Yeah.
But that was just a long history. I'm sorry, that's a long history of the same thing over and over again. Like the same, different people maybe over the years. But you look back too, and you think, we've only had 2 highway bosses in 20-something years.
Right.
In fact, if you go all the way back to Bobby Hanna when he started, I mean, it's 30-something more
Right.
years. We've only had 2 highway bosses.
Yeah.
We've only had a handful of fire chiefs. We've only had a handful of 1 or 2 police chiefs in the last 25, 30 years.
Right.
And so you begin to realize how the continuity of these positions and these individuals, long-term, the Board of Health has been in place a very long time. And the continuity of that knowledge, that institutional knowledge of how do we solve these problems? How do we get this information out to people, and how do these things get solved? That a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've had such long-term employees keeping that ball rolling.
100%.
And we've been able to do it without a town manager or town administrator for all this time, because everybody steps up when they're needed.
Right.
And it doesn't it's not always the same person. It's not always chief who stepped
No, of course
up.
not.
Right.
But every time we needed something, somebody stepped up.
Right.
Whether it was a select board member, emergency management, whoever it was, that's I've said a couple of times, I don't know if I've said it here, but I do consulting for municipalities. I've been in almost every municipality in New England, and in my time I have sworn I would never be a selectman, never be involved in town government unless I moved to one of 2 towns. And that was always, for 20 years, it's always been Brimfield or Bethany, Connecticut. And those 2 towns you go into.
We should go look for a house down in Bethany.
Check that
Sounds
place
like
out.
a nice town.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. You go into town hall, I need my tax bill, I could ask the, police chief, and he'll go help me find where to go.
Right.
You know, or everybody is willing to help, and it's just an amazing, magical place.
Yep.
And you've seen that, you know, in our time as select board members. I mean, how many resignations did we have?
Right. I was actually looking at the agenda today, and I was thinking about. I'm just trying to think of the agenda that we put out there on a Thursday for a following Monday, and I don't recollect resignations being on there. I remember appointments being on there, but hardly ever. I mean, we had some situations that arose, of course, but it certainly wasn't. I couldn't remember actually putting one on there.
Yeah.
I do remember putting, there are positions vacated that we had to fill or to be vacated, and the situations arose for certain, but I just don't remember a resignation.
Yeah. I mean, we had the same core group.
Yeah. Maybe
For
any
20
zoning
years.
officer might be probably the most. I'm just trying to think back. I just can't even
The
remember.
building inspector turned over a few times.
Yeah, but that was it. Yeah.
Even those, and a lot of times too, with even some of the changes that we have had, and whether it be at fire chief or other positions, those replacements, except for Chief McCarthy, those replacements come from within the same department, and so like Chief Contois has been with that department for decades,
Right.
And you're not losing anything. You're not
Right.
The head of that department continues to have his history and knowledge and the
for
continuity
sure.
with staff.
Yeah, it brings
all
that
stuff.
continuity with them.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, for sure.
So a lot can be said, but not enough can be said for just how important small communities need these dedicated employees and have long-term
Absolutely.
service in their positions. Because I don't want to kick Brimfield in the shins, but it's not the highest paying town in the Commonwealth. And so for those of us who have chosen to, have our professional careers in town, money was not the issue.
Right.
It was not the issue. And so having an excellent working condition, having a good relationship with the Board of Selectmen, having relationships with other department heads and members of other agencies, not just the fire chief, but the entire staff. I mean, there wasn't not a single firefighter that doesn't call me by my name and wave when they see me. It's just, and the same vice versa.
Yeah. We won't say what name they call him.
Yeah.
No, I have a few, but
Nicknames. That's what they call them. It's a friendly, wave, that one finger wave.
that odd wave, but
Very odd.
at least they all did it, and so that's my point. They're all willing to wave,
There you go.
and so there's a lot of people at home don't understand, or they do understand, they just never realized, perhaps they never
Right.
quite knew just the extent to which Brimfield functions on the personalities of the people working there.
Right.
Right.
It's not about the money. It's not money driven. It's not professional
really.
driven. Brimfield really isn't a segue into any other greater, Hollywood's
Right.
not going to call you when
Right.
you're in Brimfield.
Right.
They might call Paul and I.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course, these
Because
fellows,
now they will because of
Yeah.
podcasts. so.
right, their
Yeah.
career's going to take
Yeah,
off.
the phone's ringing off the hook as we
You know,
speak. I'm getting
It's
texts.
TikTok next and
There you go.
OnlyFans right after that.
I don't think we're gonna go that way.
Personally, I'm going to smash my computer. But
We'll stay away from that one.
right, please.
But I do think that when we go back to the agenda item, I think this emphasizes. Go ahead.
And actually, Michelle states that not many resignations and not nearly as many executive sessions either,
Right.
which
right.
is certainly true.
No, that's a good point. I don't even. I'm trying to think how many I remember being like really nervous about it, like trying to figure out how to do it, how to make the wording right, and really it wasn't until a year ago that I became very adept at like the verbiage and everything, how to go in and out and make sure you did it the right way, and to the point where anyhow we did become quite familiar with it, which is it was unheard of.
Yep.
In the 6 years I was there before that. But we do have some key positions. I mean, these when you talk about the treasurer, I mean that's a key position,
Right.
And that needs to have some stability, and to have that position vacated is really people should be upset or nervous or ask why or what's going on with that. For me, that strikes me as something that we gotta fix, and
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see what they talk about at the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And Go ahead.
I'm sorry. For the people in TV land.
This guest star thinks he's,
Sorry. I've only got 15
Give him
minutes.
the mic.
Right. I've only got 15 minutes of fame to get my word out.
That's right, exactly.
I
think you're okay.
But people need to understand and to have faith in Brimfield's financial status. And nothing's been said yet about that, but the finance committee and the people that are on the finance committee,
Right.
the treasurer collector, the accountant, we've had the same accountant for decades.
Right.
We've had the same treasurer collector.
Minus for a couple of years.
We hired a
We had to
company.
pull it from the
where that was-
bullpen. We had to pull it
Right.
back in from the bullpen.
She had
Yeah.
to drag her out of retirement.
Yeah.
And we've only had a couple of treasurer collectors over the years. And that, again, those things, the very stable finance committee, a very knowledgeable finance committee,
Yes.
and then very good employees in those positions have made Brimfield a very financially stable town. There's an excellent bond rating for a community its size. As you guys well know, you were on the board when
Yeah.
that bond rating
Yep,
was
absolutely.
achieved.
Yep.
And that was no small piece of effort. That
No.
took a long time to get everything squared away and all the mathematics done and everybody process and everybody's procedures in place, and that
yeah.
took a long time. And then once you have all those things, you have to then prove to the people that give those bond ratings that you've been doing it and can do it, that it's sustainable, that you
Right.
didn't just suddenly wake up one morning and had, you were in the red or
Right.
whatever, or you're out of the red finally.
Right.
And, they suddenly give you a better bond rating. So that was a lot of effort by finance, by treasurer, by accountant, department heads. Everybody got their ducks in a row for a long time. And they should. Don't get me wrong. They
Yeah,
should
they're
have their
supposed
ducks
to,
in a row.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But because, again, the personalities involved and the people that volunteered their time
Right.
and the efforts that were made by individuals, those bond ratings were secured and well-deserved.
Right.
Yeah.
And-
I don't think people know how much work it goes into getting it and fulfilling the accreditation and getting the rating.
Right.
It's a lot more work than just kind of showing the end statement of a bank
Of
bank
course.
account. It's
Of course.
so much more work than that.
Right.
And
And
that's why a lot of the small towns can't do it. I mean, they just don't have
Yeah.
they just don't have the resources to do it. So to be able to do it in a town really the size of Brimfield, but with the people on hand, they absolutely stood up to the task.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yep. And I was on that a little bit. Not to push my own.
Yeah.
He never said.
This is the guy right here.
Yeah,
Both of
that's
these
me.
guys.
Yep.
Yeah. No. The bond council told us that we should expect a AA.
Right.
And there was a very remote chance that we would get AA plus,
Right.
and we had to hit everything 100%. And that team got together and
They did.
got
Right.
the AA plus for the town.
Yeah.
And it was flawless participation in the meeting, flawless getting all the documents they needed.
Information that they needed, yeah. And this is it's not just like you're striving to get your B to an A minus in school. This means a lot because it means that your ability to borrow money is affected. So you may want to go in why it's so important to have a AA plus.
And the cost of that money you borrow. The interest rates
Right.
are based on your bond rating. The length of term is based on your bond rating.
Right.
So different projects, whether it be a building project, whether it be the purchase of an expensive fire truck. But again, finance committee, capital planning committee, department heads, treasurer, collector,
Right.
Accountant, got everything, all the ducks in a row.
Right.
And they're still in a row. It's not like we're in catastrophe here.
No,
Uh,
right. No,
everything's-
FinCom's done great with this, with the safety complex and to be able to, I mean, the way they, the way they control the spending and to be able to pay that off. I mean, they've done a great job. Tremendous forethought.
Right.
Tremendous
Yeah. Oh,
forethought.
I've said forever since I was on finance
Oh,
Right.
man.
that
Just goes all.
Right.
I'm just going to move the camera.
Finance is the grown-ups at the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have done so good for this town,
Right.
and it's they're soft-spoken, they're behind the scenes, but boy,
Yeah. Yeah, they're active and they follow the letter. The letter of the law, and they don't,
Yep.
they do it right.
Right.
so we've got a thing saying it's a new trio. Maybe Chief wants to join you every week.
Well, I sat in hair and makeup for 20 minutes. Nobody showed up. Right? I sat in the green room and there was nothing to eat, no snacks.
No.
So far,
I'll work on it. This is a test first. We gotta see.
I realize I'm not a union member of the Screen Actors Guild, but
That's right.
you know, so far the accommodations and pay scale
less than desirable.
Right.
Well, that's all right.
So
Yeah. Well, you know, we know what you were getting paid all these years at Brimfield, so.
well, that's why I was rich enough to buy land in town.
There you go.
My
Yeah.
salary was, you know,
Yeah.
so.
So.
Should we? Again, you had something in mind.
Yes. So actually, you had mentioned the cap plan, and that's you know, so that's something, you know, another thing that's kind of irked me is you know, they talk about all the work that they're doing, and really there's been 3 grants that they've gotten,
Right.
you know, and I would say one of the, going back again to the financial piece and grants and all that, when we got the Smart Winter Streets grant from MassDOT for the gazebo and for the paths and lights, you know, that was a big project, but that proposal went in with 4 phases in it.
Right.
You know, and I, that's, again, the state likes to see phases and likes to see big projects that can be cut into little pieces. You know, they had hopefully, you know, better start looking at the next Smart Streets project,
Right.
which was, you know, and the Smart Streets program at MassDOT is a great opportunity for small local governments to improve their down, well,
Yeah.
to increase the livability, the commercialism and everything else in downtown.
Right.
So, and they like to have nodes of you know, importance. So we started, phase 1 was the Common, you know, which was linking the state sidewalks and everything on Route 20 to the Common, and it also made some paths kind of between the town hall, the senior center, and somewhat to Hitchcock.
Right.
And phase 2 is going to be sidewalks on North Main,
Right.
going really from the senior center to the Hitchcock.
Gotcha.
And then phase 3 was going to be from the Hitchcock down 19 to the elementary school. You know, and it's basically just a spider web out so that the town becomes more walkable. There's more to do in downtown that would help spur economic development. And that all went into, you know, that plan, which was all great. And obviously we got it, you know, almost as they also issue these contracts on a rolling basis, and we got ours almost immediately.
Right.
You know, because it was, Brimfield doesn't ask for a lot of money,
Right.
and it was a good basis to help get, you know, a downtown in Brimfield. So hopefully that's going to be brought up again at some point.
Right. Right.
You know, but then the 3 grants that they've gotten were the compact community, which
Yeah.
you were integral in getting.
Yeah, that
becoming
was
a compact
that was
community.
Lieutenant Governor Polito's little baby, I think, when she was kind of pushing those little small grants that many communities could take advantage of, and they ranged from grants as low as, you know, $3,000, $2,000 all the way up to some of the IT grants, which were much more invested as far as money and time and people. And so that was there's a list. Anybody can go online on the mass.gov and look at the list of community compact grants that are out there, and there's a wide variety. We got one for the police training.
Right.
They're good, and then then you got to implement them in a certain amount of time, and some of them are better than others as far as what you can do with them. Some of them are very specific. The IT one, we started out with just looking at what we had, what we didn't have, and that was an eye-opening, and then we went with the other ones to get fiber. We talked about this before. So yeah, there were multiple, and they kind of build on each other for sure.
Right.
And again, it's one of those things is once you put in for one, you have an idea how to do it, and it's not that difficult to kind of put in for a grant.
So it almost sounds like, you put in those grants not so much relying.
Oh, absolutely. I filled out the paperwork.
Yeah.
I got numbers like when we did.
Like Carol assisted.
Oh yeah, well,
But-
she got a lot of the numbers that were specific that I didn't have the answer to.
Yeah.
For some of the and IT too. Obviously
Yes.
for the IT grant,
IT
they got you a lot of the numbers and the facts, the factual data that kind of went into it. With like the Green Community Act, I needed all how many kilowatt hours that thing was spinning around, and you needed how much oil we were in.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of work.
And you had to maintain it.
Right, and then you have to keep on doing subsequent. I think it's like every year, every other year, or something like that.
Yes.
Every year, I think it is. But yeah, I did. I mean, yeah, I did. I mean, there's nobody else to really dump it on. It was,
Right.
and so
Well, if you were this board, you just dump it on the administrative
Teresa.
assistant,
Yeah, and
in which is just totally unfair.
it is unfair. It is unfair. There should be a little bit of skin in the game from the people behind the desk
Yeah,
too.
which, going back to her resignation, I wouldn't doubt if part of this resignation is just
time,
time.
and effort.
You know, they I'm sure they want her on this committee, but the reality is, she's got a life outside of town.
Right? No, I agree. No, I totally agree with that.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So this year they're doing, the 3 grants that they won, that are, was the security,
Yep.
which, I mean, how many times did that bounce around?
It did kick around, but thank God they got some grant money, and thank goodness that some of that's going to get implemented.
Right.
Yeah.
There's definitely a necessity in our society. Municipal
Yeah.
buildings should be videoed and pass coded and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Harsh reality.
it's a harsh reality, and we
Yeah.
all like to think of Brimfield as the kind of town that every town should have been, for 100 years.
Right.
But unfortunately, the rest of the world has sped up and left us in the dust. And Brimfield needs to catch up a little bit, and it is trying to catch up in these kind of regards. And
Yeah.
so the grant money for security and video surveillance and locked doors and all that stuff is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to get implemented. The sooner the better, and
Yeah. Well,
get that thing going.
once again, I go back to, in July they had an emergency meeting because it was required,
Right.
and now it's almost March and it's still not implemented.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
And so that's one of those. I probably shouldn't have gone there. I'm sorry.
No, it's
Yeah.
quite all right. It's quite all right. There was some efforts early
It's
on to
frustrating.
make it happen initially, and then
Yeah.
some things I think got overthought, and but now we're in a position hopefully to get it going, and the timeline obviously wasn't ideal, but if the money works out and the equipment is correct and the system
Right.
is designed well and it gets installed, then we'll be better off.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be the most expensive thing in the annex. Probably.
It will.
Yeah.
The most valuable.
Well, the annex is a lovely, lovely old 200
It's one of those things,
building, but
It's just one of those things. How much do you invest? But
Yeah.
but I think this is a necessary evil. It just is
Yep.
the way it is. Yeah.
it is, and hopefully some of it is transferable,
Right.
in the future. But with technology changing at the rate that it is,
Yeah.
the cameras you put in today and the systems you put in today,
Incompatible.
5 years from now are
Be incompatible with Windows 20.
worthless. Right, exactly.
It just won't happen.
They're worthless. So-
Yeah, it is. It is frustrating.
Yeah. And then the
What was
other,
the other grant?
the second grant was the benchmarking,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which I kept. That's now 2 years late. Still,
Right.
to my knowledge, no department head has been involved in it, which
Right.
is a shame. If it's even started, and they're gonna miss the budgeting season again.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Budgeting season is now. For those who don't know, it
It's
is
upon us.
It is more
Yeah.
than started.
It's due. All budgets are due. just about now.
Yeah, they're supposed to be. They've always been kind of before March-ish,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And the annual town meeting, the prep for that is all now. It's all started. Right after the holidays. There's a huge rush to get things done. And I think they said, I want to say they said March 5th. No, I think they pushed all the deadlines down, because I heard them. I don't know if they've officially done it, what the dates are for the things that they have to get in, but it used to be March, early March, and then it was kind of, all right, we'll give a little bit more for people to get things in, and they would just trickle in a little bit around March.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I haven't heard anything
No.
as far as that.
That's the other thing that, used to be at all of our meetings.
Right.
We'd have,
Budget discussions.
discussions,
Yeah,
we'd
for
have-
sure.
yeah,
This is when all of the department heads should look at their budgets, and then they should bring them to the select board, and they should start the schedule now so that they can polish it and get it done.
Right.
So,
So finance committee, by this time, by this calendar, finance committee has already put together the projections. They've already made their recommendations, and those recommendations have gone to department heads. And so department heads will then take those recommendations, as you know, and integrate them with what their needs might be. If they see a difference in any particular column or expense, and then they have to write up justification and
Right.
bring that justification. And department heads want to meet with the finance committee as well to discuss not only this year's plan but any future long-term plans. You should always be talking 3 years, 5 years in advance each year. So that's a rolling conversation every year. It's 3 to 5 years in advance.
Right.
So you have some idea of where direction you're going. And the same with the select board. Department heads come in and talk to select board and let them know where they're at this year and what some projections might be for the year or two to come.
Right.
As you're planning something, whether it's a facilities issue, whether it's an equipment issue, whether it's a personnel issue. The police department went through cycles where we had extended our hours of patrol, and we raised salaries, and so those conversations took place over long periods of time, and projections and anticipations were made for knowing that next year we'll be talking about this and that. The year after we might be talking about this or that.
Right.
And so boards, again, that continuity, that history helps keep things rolling sufficiently and successfully.
Yeah.
and that's another, I wish that we could have had some training, and I kick myself and kick you for not suggesting it. But this guy, again, for those that don't know, was the king of plans, which was really great to see.
Well, I had all kinds of grandiose plans.
But it made for really good discussions. And you saw it on town meeting floor that yes, the police department every year was asking for 10%, 15% more, but it was really well laid out, and it was a plan that the select board could get behind.
It was
and
an end
saw.
game. You could see that there was the first quarter, the second quarter, the halftime. It was a game. It was to try to plan so that you had a structural success every year, that you weren't saying, "Oh, I don't have any money. I'm running in a deficit," and you just don't want to run a business that way. You don't
No,
want
of
to run
course
a
not.
department that way.
Yeah.
Every department head has not only the reality of what they're doing and what it costs to do that, and salaries and expenses, but every department head has a wish list.
Right.
And hopefully they have sort of a dream for their department. And whether it's just more fire trucks or a helicopter for the police department, or whatever your crazy dream is, but you're constantly looking to improve your agency and the services it provides.
Right.
Okay. And Brimfield, unfortunately, especially with the police department, and some of it's my own fault because I took over, and we were barely getting a patrol car out there every day.
Right.
And now, years later, we have funding for 24-hour patrols. We have good equipment. We have a beautiful building. We have trained personnel. We have
Yep.
excellent police officers. Chief Beaudry has been with the department 20 years almost now, and
Right.
so there's that continuity, that history, and that long-term effort towards a goal. Even though you have short-term goals that are achievable, but you should always have long-term goals that seem less achievable.
Right.
You're always looking for that extra bit, and pushing your agency forward is part of your responsibility as a department head. You don't always succeed. You can't win every year. But
Yeah.
you should always have that energy in you to make your agency better and have your equipment better, your personnel better, everything you do better. Your service to the public is getting better because of your effort to push that dream along. So
I think the only discussion on finances that I've seen, other than the treasurer, and that FinCom meeting, it has been town clerk. She has kind of talked about adding a position, if I'm not mistaken, at the last meeting.
Yeah.
You know, no numbers, I don't think, but there's a discussion there. And so again, there's a lot that needs to get done. I'm surprised when I look at the agenda that they just published that it's
Still
just
nothing.
licenses. It's just licenses. That's all it is licenses and resignation. There's got to be more going on this time of year. There has to be. Oh, there should be.
There should be.
There better be.
Yeah. But, you know, this brings me back in. Says, so, you know, they're doing the benchmarking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a grant this year, which it's money from the state, so it's not impacting
Right.
our taxes.
Right.
But that was something that I really wanted to get done as a select
As a
board,
yeah.
that we would, you know, put it on some of the department heads to help,
Right.
because we do have a unique town. You know, no other town has a flea market that impacts, you know, almost every board and department the way that ours does.
Right.
You know, we have part-time and full-time, and, you know, we have 50% health insurance. We, you know, and all this stuff has to be looked at very carefully
Yeah.
to give us a really good benchmarking.
Now, for people that don't understand what benchmarking is, it's kind of an idea that to make sure that you're paying your town employees a comparable rate for positions in other situations. And so it's very hard to compare, I'll say treasurers because it's in my mind, the treasurer collector, the treasurer from Brimfield to Springfield to Worcester to Barry to, I mean,
Yeah.
you have to figure out, okay, what towns are close enough in population and hourly needs to give a reasonable, comparable pay.
And treasurer collector, I'll even go the step further and say, not only do they have a lot more invoices because of the flea market with all the vendor permits and everything else, but we're also, you know, in a very small minority of towns that have a regionalized school district but a localized elementary school.
Right.
You know, so there's intricacies there that, you know, make us once again truly
A little bit
unique.
unique, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So
Well, that's what benchmarks are right now. And Mike, to your credit, you've done probably more and more in benchmarking over the last few years for the town than anybody as far as calling and finding out the numbers. We've had
that's bench warming.
bench yeah, that's right. That's right. Just sitting in there waiting. Mike, come on in. No, I mean, I know sometimes the individual department heads will do it when they'll say, I called around and they talk, but it's not always the same. Probably Marie has done some just because she knows you know that she's got to get something comparable. You can't just pick, you know, the 5 towns that are around us and get an average. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and that was FinCom. FinCom,
Yeah.
all of us got together, and I mean, I had some map skills that some others didn't have,
Right.
so I was able to do a lot more analysis.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we worked a long time to find the comparable towns
Yeah.
on 12 different variables. So then the last grant that they received was a capital plan.
Oh yeah.
You know, which again, it was like $20,000 for a capital plan for a 5-year plan.
We currently have a 10-year
We have a
capital
10-year plan, so
We have a capital planning committee, and we have a capital plan that has a 10-year forecast, and it even goes beyond 10 years for certain pieces of equipment, but it's generally a 10-year rolling forecast, and just about every single piece of mechanized equipment that the town owns is on there, from lawnmowers to fire trucks to bulldozers to police
Nice.
cars.
Yeah.
There are discussions that were being had to expand the capital plan to include
Roofs.
more durable goods, but still short, you know, relatively short
Short
term.
term, yeah.
So whether it's a 30-year roof or, you know, a particular structure, a particular arrangement in facilities, whether it be boilers or furnaces and those kinds of things, but to get those on there as well so that the town is prepared to replace those items when the need arises.
perfect. Yeah. I think the only benefit that I would say with the 5-year one is that we could plan for those 28 laptops that were
Oh, those were on the cap plan already.
Because they're all going to be replaced at the same. They're all going to be unsupported by Microsoft at the same time.
I added the laptops into when I was on the select board.
Right,
but that got all screwed up because we got 28 at one time. Which
I still don't know where they are. And I asked where are those 28 computers? Because certainly the 5 in the select board don't have them because they don't have a computer in front of them, which in this day and age is absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah.
If somebody says, what's the bylaw? You can just look it up. I mean, why wouldn't you have a computer that if somebody says, oh yeah, somebody sent me an email today and I remember reading it, I just open it up and look at it. To me, it's unfathomable that they don't have a laptop in front of their faces now, especially since there are 28 that are basically in somewhere.
Even this dinosaur had a laptop at the end.
Exactly.
With the real Brimfield email.
Even I could open up a laptop.
Even I could get mail. But to me, it just doesn't make any sense.
No.
That's always cracked me up a little bit that they don't have it.
Yeah.
So
But technology is the big issue.
Take your notes with a chisel.
Right. But
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, it's taking notes on a rock with the chisel.
Okay.
Back in the old days.
So I did just get notified that the MassDOT Smart Street Grant, which could have done, all of the sidewalks on North Main and maybe even some more, is due on March 1st. Now I forget what was said, but.
okay.
Well, that's okay. Whether it's the 1st or the 8th, it's like it's a week.
Right. It's 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
And so
March 1st.
Yeah. All right. Well, man, they got to get busy because that's more than a little work.
Yeah.
It's more than.
And that's another large grant that could have been very beneficial to town.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be nice for them to just talk to people, anyways. But
And since Brimfield had gotten phase 1, the town common, phase 2,
they're almost looking for it.
They're expecting that paperwork to arrive and the continuity of that program and that plan, and to see it finalized through participation year after year.
Yeah. And again, that's not for Teresa.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
Too much is being asked of her these days.
Agree.
But this board has to step up and do some stuff themselves.
I did see. Did you see the first agenda item after the resignations? Let me just put that. So I'm gonna cut to that, and then I think I've got. I think I might. Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Let's see. So first off, I don't know what they're gonna. Are they gonna advertise for the treasurer collector? I'm
I don't
assuming
know.
they will, right? They have to, I think, right?
They don't have to if it's from within. And
okay. Okay.
I would suggest Becky would be a good,
Yeah, I would.
She's certified.
Yes. So she was my pick.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, I don't want to go all the way back to last spring.
And we probably
Do we want to?
We probably shouldn't even put in what our suggestions are because it will be opposite after that.
Right. Yeah. Anybody should go back to last spring when we were actually interviewing for these positions because I think that was telling. But one of the selectmen is suggesting a stipend elevation for select board, which, and I'm going to say this very truthfully, I don't absolutely disagree with. For the amount of time that a selectman stays or should be working for the town, there it is. It's up there, right? So he's asking for a 5,000 stipend. What is it now? I can't remember. What
About
I got.
2,500, 2,700.
Yeah. And so, there's a lot of time you spend, but the reality is I don't think we ever took a raise, or it was I can't remember if there was a small raise at some point.
So
at some point it gets in, you don't want to insult people for the time that they spend, by offering too little, and you can't really pretend that it is a salary that makes sense for the time.
So I was always against increasing. I was big time against it.
And we always did. Well, we did.
And the reason is, and I just happen to have it here with me.
Awesome.
The Excel or the salary survey, the last benchmarking that was done in fiscal year 2019, looked at all of those positions, and the selectman stipend in Brimfield in 2019 was the total between all 5 people were $11,366. That was the budget for the stipends for the year.
2,300 apiece.
Yeah.
Right, 2273. The average of all of our peer communities for the for all the positions
Yep.
was $4,210.
All right.
So that's over double,
Right.
almost triple.
Right.
The amount that Brimfield is different from the average is, well, $7,000. The average without the high and the low. So we took out,
Yeah,
finance
and-
committee didn't want, the outliers.
Yep.
So we took out the high and the low, and that brought it down to 3,388. So
For the total of the board,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean,
And the boards are made up of number of people.
right.
Yeah, but some of those towns are only 3-member boards.
Actually, the only 5-member board was, besides us, was Templeton, and they didn't actually even respond.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, our $2,273 per person
Exactly.
was higher than, let's see,
Some of the totals.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm having a tough time looking. Barry,
Mm-hmm.
New Braintree, Wales, they all had less for the whole board than we got individually.
Individually, right. Yeah, no, that's
Well, again, it goes back to you get what you pay for. And so,
yeah.
in fairness to the select board members, and those communities are obviously volunteers. Select board members in Brimfield are volunteers as well. I advocate, of course, and just from my 40+ years of municipal experience, you should get paid for your effort. You should at least be making gas money and lunch money.
Right.
$2,300 a year to be a selectman in the town of Brimfield is hardly a profitable enterprise.
Right.
Right.
Even though it may be twice what the guy in Templeton might be getting.
Right.
But you're all in the same boat with Templeton and Barry and Wales, and that is none of you are getting paid sufficiently for the work that you do.
Right. And I think there is a trade-off between what is appropriate and what is expected. I mean, I never looked, honestly, the stipend was not why I did it.
Right,
of course not.
And,
Right.
and I didn't look at the stipend as being, okay, I need that. It's not going to get you
No, it's not gonna do
retired. It's not going
anything
to
for
get you that boat. It's not going to get you that. It's not going to get you that. And what I found.
Don't say boat.
Oh yeah. What I
Some of us have problems.
what I
I like a
found.
good used boat.
What I found with the with that particular line item on this agenda is timing, and you got to read the room. You know what I mean? And so I thought that was like, one, that's a ludicrous amount of money to jump into. To be honest, that it just isn't gonna. But it's not timing. You just lost your treasurer. You got all sorts of things happening right now, and you're gonna go into an annual town meeting and try to justify that.
My personal feeling is this is another one of those items that they have no intention of agreeing with.
Oh no, they won't.
But the chair and the vice chair just wanted to let it out so that everyone in the room
Right.
Can
Points
be
at
upset.
one player.
Yeah.
100% right. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, it's a
I mean-
strategy.
right down to, if I'm not mistaken, it includes his name.
Yeah, it includes his name. Instead it said right.
Yeah.
Right.
It,
I mean, if the chair said, I know they can't have a deliberation about it, but I mean, they should have put it up as a discussion of stipend for the select board, and then discuss it amongst yourselves. We can hear the pros and cons of what people are thinking, and then they make the decision afterwards. But if the select person wants it on the agenda, I personally think it should be on the agenda. They only put it on, and we never could get anything on the agenda, but this they put on the agenda because it absolutely had an ulterior motive.
Right.
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah. And if I am correct in that they're not going to agree to this,
Right.
The appropriate thing would have been to, have the chair have an offline discussion with Soto, which wouldn't be any sort of open meeting law violation if it's just the two of them. and just say the 5,000. Read the room. It's not going to happen.
Right.
How about we start with $1,000?
Right.
Or see if there's
start with a discussion.
middle ground. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Have them do a 5-year plan as the
or a benchmark. Or use all the grants that they have at their beck and call.
But no raise for an elected official ever goes well in the voting booth.
No.
It's very rare, whether it's Congress or it's your local selectmen.
Yeah, usually not.
Very
right?
few citizens are happy to see a raise for an elected official. But the job should compensate you at the very least, gas money, lunch money,
Advil.
a little your
Tylenol.
Tylenol bill, and the occasional cocktail.
Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah.
all that.
So is that $2,500 a year? Is that $5,000 a year?
Right.
Is it what does it boil down to? I mean, your terms are 3 years now, correct?
Yes.
And so for 3 years, $2,500 a year, it's $7,500 for a 3-year tour of duty. The miles you put on your car, the lunches you miss, the places you have to go. And if you're an active, involved selectman, you
Right.
might be on a couple of committees. You might be on the Tri-Town Committee. You might be on the Pioneer Valley. You
Right.
might be on some other things. You're the representative at regional stuff, whether it
Right.
be emergency management and other things. You guys
filling
are
out
involved
grants.
in all of those things.
Yeah.
Right. You have to drive into Springfield to sit through a grant
Right.
presentation.
Talk to the
So-
DEP for.
We do a lot of things online now, so you might get to sit at home and do it, but you're still
Oh, yeah.
devoting your effort to the town.
100%.
And so, you're not going to make $10,000 a year, but you should be making enough to just to take some of the sting out of the volunteerism.
Right.
That's all. And
Yeah.
whatever the voters decide, and if they think that $3,000 or $5,000 a year is a fair compensation for your effort, and then give them what they pay for. Give them the
Right.
effort. Make
That's
it
right. If you
make
can
it-
justify,
Yeah.
I agree. If you think you're doing a good job and they want to pay, then that's one thing. But
Right.
yeah.
I mean, the greater scheme of things, the town's budget is $8-9 million, maybe more now, and
Yeah.
3,000 or 4,000 apiece to the select board isn't crazy money in the greater scheme of things. But again, it always goes over like a fart because it's the voting citizens got to say, I want to give more money to my elected officials, and
Right.
that's just
Right.
a bitter taste.
It's true.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
All right.
That was all that the agenda has on it, other
Yeah.
than just licenses, which are flea market operator licenses, which I think would be very interesting if a member or two didn't show, who couldn't make that meeting. It would be a little bit of a problem, but
Yep.
Now, do you expect this agenda to remain in place until the meeting, or is there some changes to the agenda expected?
So interesting you should bring that up, because I actually did an analysis of the revision numbers, and they were far more revised than non-revised as far as the agenda is lasting from Thursday to Monday. However, because I made that known, they have decided that the only revision that needs to be posted is the one right outside the annex door on the bulletin board. So they don't consider the one that's on the website to be a primary notification site, which I don't know
Is
what.
primary notification a singular location, or was it three spot location?
So I can't find it. It's not in the bylaws, which I think we should make it a bylaw.
Yeah.
And maybe I
A
could.
citizen petition.
Yeah, maybe I could write that. It's just to, yes, we're going to keep the one outside the annex. I don't know if people are going to the annex as frequently as they did back in the day, if you want to say.
Especially with the drop off and whatnot, you don't have to get out of the car.
Right, exactly. You don't even have to, right? And so I think, a bylaw that might make it so that the primary location, because people are still going to stand by the print version on the thumbtack, and so make it outside the annex and on the website. Again, technology doesn't allow you to do it. That's not your fault. But if all things being equal, those two sites could both be considered primary, and in my book, they should be. You do a revision, you can instantaneously post it up there.
Yeah.
The other thing about revisions, in my book, is if you're going to do a revision, label it as revision, which they do, but they don't leave it the way it was and put a
Right.
strike through or an ad and make it in a different font or a different color or
bold.
something. They should at least, if they're taking something off, put a strike through it. You know, so you know what it used to be, just to kind of, so you're not thinking you're crazy when you say, I thought there was something on there and it's not there. I think that's what they should do. The revision should have the main copy and then add to it, not take away from it. In my book, I think that's more appropriate.
Yep.
It's
I would
like
agree.
it's like if you're writing on a contract, you don't erase it. You put a line through it, you initial it, and then you put the next thing on it. So it would, to me, that's the kind of legal document that it's supposed to be.
Yep.
So I don't know if people, they can maybe let us know on Facebook if they're kind of keen on that. Maybe I can, writing a bylaw would at least make it a law. Right now, I think it was just, as I recall, because we've discussed it before as a board, it was just an agreement, you
Right.
know, that we would do that. That we would, when we were doing it, we would I think we would end up going to the website and putting the link for the teams. That was actually part of it. You know, that was part of the posting, was all that as well at the same
Right.
time. And we just agreed to do it that way. And since we pointed out that there are revisions, they won't necessarily put revisions out on the post.
Someone's saying highlight the revisions.
Highlight it. Exactly right. It's not that hard.
Right.
You know, you highlight it, you print it, you put it up there in both places. But if you don't get the revised copy online, you don't get a revised copy unless you go and take a picture of the one that's in front of the annex, outside the door of the annex. So it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's like posting stuff on the back door to the men's bathroom.
Right.
Like,
It's just,
there's only 5 people going to walk by that thing in the course of a day.
yeah, I mean.
And nobody walks by it during the weekend. So
Right.
Right.
So I think you need to be, yeah. Anyhow, I think that needs to be done, to be honest.
Yep.
Is
All
that
right.
it?
That's it.
Oh,
Well,
man.
what else do the people want?
What else
What else do
the people want?
It's now, karaoke time.
It's-
All right then.
Well, I
Yeah.
think
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
we really,
And thank
really
you to the-
appreciate you.
Thank you to everybody out there in TV land for watching and supporting the channel, and keeping
Here,
Brimfield close to the.
Point down to say subscribe.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe.
I'm sorry, subscribe, and send donations, whatever these guys want. Just give them what they want.
There you go. Give us what we want. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
to see you all again.
Did you
Dismiss children.